All right. Uh, Hey, this is Washington Libertarians with Danielle, and I'm here with Cobi Clark, our legislative director for the Libertarian Party of Washington State. How's it going, Cobi?
Hi, Danielle. It's going pretty good. Thanks for hosting again, per usual.
Yeah. What are we talking
So,
about today?
I put together a school choice bill during school choice week earlier this year. I think school choice week is at the end of February. Is that right? Last week in January? Something like that. Anyway, like somewhere between 4 and 8 weeks ago, we worked in our department to put together this bill on school choice. And you might wonder, what necessitates school choice? And there's a couple key things. First of all, the state school program cost a lot more than private school. A lot of people don't know that, but in 2019, the state spent 23% more per person on average on school than the private sector did. Private school cost around $13,000 a year in 2019, and public school cost around $15,000 per student per year in the same year. And you might say, well, how could that be? There's a profit motive. And the answer is, well, yeah, there's a profit motive not to charge as much money. The state has the same profit motive, administrators and bureaucrats, except they can just tax you. They don't have to, it's not voluntary. So that's why it costs more on the state level than in the private sector. The other issue is that, there's a very top-down philosophy with the state system. It's very standardized criteria that works for, it's supposed to be one size fits all, but it's really one size fits none. And I think the state's kind of realized this in recent years with the big push for inclusivity. But for a single institution to be inclusive of every individual's needs is, well, frankly, it's not possible. A single monopoly can't provide for all of the very needs of the individual, which is why you want to market with lots of different schools that provide lots of different needs for lots of different kinds of people. And that's the whole purpose of school choice.
Because everybody is different and everybody has different needs and learning styles and communities.
Right. And the one school cannot provide for all of the different needs of all of the different individuals.
So, what is our solution?
Right. So how do you build a private market that is still inclusive of people who don't necessarily have $15,000 a year to spend per student, which, first of all, it would cost less than that in the private market, as I indicated. However, there are still people who, even if they didn't have to pay the property taxes, may not be able to afford that. And we put together a relatively clever voucher program that's different than voucher programs which have been tried in the past. This voucher program would not supplement the existing school system, and it wouldn't function like charter schools. It would actually be exclusively vouchers. In other words, the only way you could offer services in this state as a school would either be to be private pay only and not accept the vouchers, or if you were a public school, you would have to accept the vouchers. State funding would not be provided through state administration. It would only be provided through vouchers. So in order for a school to stay open, they would have to collect these vouchers from individuals. Now, you might say, well, how are these schools going to compete with each other? And the answer is that there would be a profit motive. We would establish that each of these schools would effectively become co-ops, and teachers working at the schools would be employee owners and would be able to earn profit on these $15,000 vouchers that each individual spends on the school. And that gives the school profit motive to cater to the needs of the individual. And it also allows each of the different individual schools to compete with each other for the same vouchers.
And so, with this co op format, it's basically incentivizing the teachers to do well and to keep each other accountable, right? Because they all own together a piece of the profits of this school.
That's right. And it also allows them to earn market competitive wages. A big complaint right now is that teachers don't earn competitive wages, and that's true because there is no competition. Monopoly doesn't foster competition. So this would allow teachers to earn wages relative to their performance in the eyes of the subjective value through the market. And my suspicion is that they would earn substantially more than they earn now in a competitive market. This would also allow individual schools to operate more efficiently from an administration perspective. Teachers would have substantially more freedom to teach the way that they feel is appropriate to teach and be less bound to an administration that wants to adhere to a specific state school philosophy, which would allow us to try new teaching philosophies, many different teaching philosophies, and figure out which one's best.
And this could still have a board, right? Like the PTA with parents and teachers and students on it, collaborating.
On an individual school level, absolutely.
And then it would kind of cut out the like superintendents of like the district, because that's at a micro level. Okay.
Right. There wouldn't be district level administration. It would be school level administration. And the administration would be primarily driven by the owners of that co-op, which would be the educators. And then the customers, which would be the parents who have the vouchers to spend on the schools, would work with the teachers to develop a program that works for everybody directly, face to face in your local school or whatever school you choose to attend, without having to go through a district-wide administration that is not accountable to individuals, is only accountable to a plurality of individuals who happen to vote.
Not even them, just the people who made the test.
Right, exactly. So now the other thing you might say is that, how is this going to affect people east of the mountains or people in lower population areas? And the answer is that total dollars would be distributed to the districts in a similar manner as they are now. In other words, each district would get the same amount of money, even if the population of one district is larger than the population of another district. And so, a higher population district might have a greater number of lower value vouchers, and a less densely populated district would have a smaller number of higher dollar vouchers. And what that does is it allows any school operating in those districts to be competing for the same number of dollars. In other words, a small population isn't going to impact your ability to receive a quality education.
And it almost incentivizes you to maybe want to move somewhere more rural, because you'll get more value for your voucher.
Right, which would help with our housing crisis.
Yeah, and the school.
Right.
Cool.
So now the other thing you might say is well, how does the state still administer standards, and what standards are appropriate for the state to administer, such as, anti-discrimination practices? You don't want a school that says, we're only going to accept people of a certain color or not color, as it were. You want a school that continues to adhere to civil rights and so on and so forth. And there's a provision in this bill which would indicate that if you are a school and you're going to accept these vouchers from people, that you have to still adhere to that state standard, and that it has to be non-discriminatory. However, there aren't state education standards. They're just civil rights standards that these schools would adhere to, and it would be up to the individual schools to set their own educational attainment standards.
Right, because the whole purpose is to give every school and every student an individualized education. So we wouldn't necessarily want statewide standards, but
that's right. Part of the purpose of this is to eliminate the statewide standards and allow teachers to develop their own standards on an individual school level.
And would the government have any role in maybe keeping track of a database of, like, if the parents and teachers are rating the school? I think there's already a thing like that online where, like, if you're looking for a house, you can see what the parents and teachers have rated the schools in that area.
I don't think there's as much need for it because A, you have the ability to leave the school. If you don't like it, you can just go pick a new school, take your voucher someplace else. And B, the market is going to basically rate the school by virtue of the dollars that it chooses to give to it. So schools that don't do well are going to fail and not be there, go away. The other question that people have sometimes when I brought this up is as well, the state doesn't have any incentive to charge less money, and creating a market would theoretically create an incentive to charge less money. However, if everyone has a $15,000 voucher, what incentive is there to spend less than that on a school? If there's no incentive to spend less than that on a school, how are you going to drive prices down? And so what we did there is we created a education bank account that parents would be allowed to contribute to if they spend less than the full face value of the voucher. In other words, if a school works hard to become more efficient and is able to charge less money than the school 5 miles away, the parent could go to that school, take the excess savings that they get from the voucher, and spend it on school supplies and education supplies for their children. It would have to go specifically into an education bank account, and that bank account can only be used for school supplies on their children. So it's not like they could undercut their children's education and then go buy a car. That's not what it's for. But what they could do is they could have schools compete with each other so that core curriculums cost less, and they can take the excess revenue and spend it on extracurricular activities and books and calculators and that sort of thing.
That sounds good.
Yeah, so that's what facilitates the competitive nature of the market.
So that's sort of like a TSP, but you're not really contributing to it per month. But I mean, sort of.
No, you'd only be contributing to it whatever excess money you have from the voucher.
Yeah, so it'd be the leftover would go into the account, and then whatever you get reimbursed or whatever if you buy
That's right.
stuff or yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yep.
And it's
And
like
then
an educational trust, is that?
yeah, basically. Then the last year, and this is a complaint a lot of people have about voucher programs, is that voucher programs historically can inflate the market in the event that a family takes the voucher and then adds additional resources of their own to pay for a more valuable core curriculum. In other words, a private school could maybe charge $20,000 or $25,000, and only $15,000 of it would be covered by the voucher, and the remainder would have to be picked up by the family. That would not work in this bill. And the reason for that is because in order for a school to accept these vouchers, they cannot charge more than the voucher amount for the core curriculum. In other words, there's not going to be a core curriculum that costs more than the voucher amount. They can charge more for extracurriculars and sports activities. So, there's still a method there for the school to generate more revenue if the core curriculum doesn't cover all of the school's expenses, or if it's not generating enough profit for that school. But I want to be clear that there is a market limitation for the core curriculum at the voucher amount, so that wealthier families aren't necessarily able to go buy a more quality education with state funds. There's still private school that will exist outside of this market. They can operate however they want without accepting vouchers. So somebody could still feasibly go spend $32,000 a year on a school like that. But if you're going to accept state voucher funds, you can't charge more than the voucher amount for the core curriculum.
I think that sounds fair. If you don't want to participate fully in the system, you can participate in a different system.
Yep. And the last point I have to make is that the goal would be to implement this by something like 2035 or 2040, 15 years from now. And the implementation would start at the high school level. In other words, the current elementary system and middle school system would stay the same, but grades 9 through 12 would be replaced with this co-op voucher system, so that the transition to see if the system works well, and to see if a transition to the system would work well for the lower level education.
And presumably that's just because, they're older, they're more able to handle change, I guess, and we can sort of use them as our guinea pigs.
Well, yeah, to a certain degree. But also, you kind of need to face something as radical as the system, and we're effectively eliminating the entire district system and replacing it with something new. And to do that across all K through 12 would be pretty drastic. It would be better to start somewhere, and I think it's more feasible to start at the top end than it is to start like in kindergarten. The number of teaching philosophies that differ at the kindergarten level are much smaller than the number of teaching philosophies that differ at the teenage level.
Oh, I suppose that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Teaching 1 + 1 can only be done so many different ways. teaching history, it has a lot more levels of interpretation that need to be considered. So anyway, that's the bill in a nutshell. It was somewhat of a quick one today, I think, but do you have any other questions?
Yeah. No, I don't, because this one really is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time with our department working through this one already. So we're on like the third or fourth iteration.
And you've got a few parents on your committee within all kinds of different age ranges, huh?
Yeah. Yep, and I'm a parent. My kid's not in school yet; he's in preschool, but he's getting there. My wife's a teacher, though. She came home the other day and she said, "Cobi, I spent 8 hours trying to figure out how to fill out paperwork to prove 1 hour of continuing education. Like the red tape of administration at the school district is just it's asinine. The work to work through the red tape is more than is worth it, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, pretty much everything dealing with the government at this point has more bureaucracy than content, as far as I've noticed.
Yeah. So this would hopefully alleviate that.
Cool. And so, do you have anything? I guess the question then is, we have this written. We need to find someone at the state level legislature who likes it enough to take it. Is that where we're at?
That's where we're at. Also, I think David Wiley's running, isn't he?
Yeah, David Wiley is running for the legislature, and this is, I believe, is one of the issues he's running on.
That's right. You take this one to the state for us and sponsor it, and hopefully get it on the table. So if you have the opportunity, vote for David Wiley.
I believe he's the 8th legislative district, so the Snohomish area.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we might have a legislator. That'd be cool. We have a lot of bills.
We do have a lot of bills, and he is, as far as I know, in support of all of them.
And he's had a hand in writing pretty much all of them, I think, or at least reviewing them, right?
That's right.
Cool. Well, vote for David Wiley for the state legislature. His website is up. I think it's wileyforliberty.com, but I'm going to double check that.
And I will also say, if there's anyone else interested who likes what we've done here on the YouTube channel and is interested in running for office and bringing these to the state themselves, reach out to us and we can help get you in this midterm election.
Yeah, wileyforliberty.com is his website. All right.
All right. I think I gotta go.
Yeah, thanks for chatting with me. Have a good one, Cobi.
It was fun. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.